RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Wednesday, the 27th of January, 2026. And of course, you are able to get us on 101.1 FM radio, as well as we are streaming on our Facebook page. Just search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. We are also on our website, rcistlucia.com, and on YouTube. You just have to search for us on those programs and those platforms, and you will definitely get us. Of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. Now, a bit of history for today. Let me go back into the year 1820. On this day, January the 27th, the Russian Antarctic expedition, led by Fabian Gottlieb von Bellinghausen and Mikhail Lazarev, discovered the continent of Antarctica. In the year 1825, on this day, United States President James Monroe urged Congress to approve the creation of an Indian territory west of the Mississippi River for the relocation of Eastern Indian tribes to promote their welfare and happiness. 1924, on this day, Vladimir Lenin was placed in a mausoleum in the Red Square in Moscow. 1944, the siege of Leningrad lifted by the Soviets after 880 days and more than 2 million Russians killed. More World War II history. In 1945, on this day, January 27th, Soviet troops liberated Auschwitz and Birkenau concentration camps in Poland, now commemorated as the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for this day. And of course, yesterday, although we were talking about Nobel Laureate Festival, I did want to actually make mention of a rather unfortunate circumstance of the loss of life on our roads. And we have certainly seen over the past couple of first days in January thus far, first days of the year, the number of road accidents, and in some instances, they have in fact even been fatal. We noticed the one down in Vieux-Fort, for example, very unfortunate situation there, which claimed the life of a young man, and very, very unfortunate indeed the circumstances of him going. And anytime we have accidents and lives are lost so suddenly, certainly it's never very easy to come to grips with, in terms of the families, in terms of the friends of these individuals, because you would have effectively known them, and you would have seen them, and you may have interacted with them on the Monday, and then on the Tuesday, without any sort of warning, they are gone. They are taken away from you. And certainly that, unfortunately, has also been the tragedy of the Clark family in losing certainly one of the kindest gentlemen you could come around, Mr. Leslie Clark. And of course, he has been an individual who made a significant contribution to the country. First, of course, in terms of work at an institution back in the 1970s, which had just been formed, that of the National Development Corporation. That had come out of the advice of the Canadian International Development Agency, CEDA, that was at that time providing quite a lot of support for St. Lucia, the construction of a new international airport. They came up with an entire plan for the south of the island for VA4. And Mr. Leslie Clark was very much front and center in terms of the efforts at play in that regard. And then, of course, later on in his life, he became a significant entrepreneur and business owner, and took on the task of becoming a restaurateur, and also bringing to St. Lucia one of the few international franchises as restaurants go to St. Lucia. And of course, I speak of Domino's Pizza. And we do have a few others, international franchise brands, but invariably they actually aren't owned by St. Lucians. But Mr. Leslie Clark, born and bred St. Lucian, took that plunge, and in fact has successfully been able over the years to be able to keep that business running, and so of course really important in terms of just the ability of the ease of so many times, no doubt, people on a weekend or on a day and they don't want to cook, or they're having a pizza party, or they're having a birthday event, and they just and that is in fact in some degree a really important service that is in fact being provided to the country in some respects. And so certainly, even though he was that entrepreneur and he did take that on, he was also tremendously generous with his with that company, and with what he how he gave back to so many different institutions, including institutions which were certainly very dear to his heart, like his alma mater, St. Mary's College, always willing to give back. And certainly having to be taken away in this manner is certainly not what any family wants to deal with. It's a very lovely piece, if you want to use that adjective within this context, but certainly a very well put together piece by Mr. Cletus Springer, writing on the passing of Mr. Leslie Clark. And I think it's befitting to actually share it with the public at this time. And it reads as follows: a sad end to the life of the gentlest of men. My philosophy on life and its uncertainties has helped me to be prepared to receive bad news at any time. Still, I was not prepared for the news that I received on awakening this morning that my friend Leslie Clark had passed from injuries he sustained in a vehicle accident yesterday on the St. Julian R. Hunt Highway. Ironically, the first person that came to my mind, was Sir Julian. I wondered if he'd been told of Leslie's passing, as I knew that, quite apart from their respective family connections, that he and Leslie had worked closely together at the National Development Corporation, NDC, at a critical time in our country's economic history. That partnership helped to save the then Halcyon Days Hotel. Also, I could not help but wonder how Sir Julian might have felt on hearing that his dear friend was the latest casualty of an accident on a highway that bears his name. Leslie Clark was the epitome of gentlemanliness. He was refined, warm, complimentary, humble, sincere, and courteous. Also, he was highly intelligent, but he was not flashy with it. When he spoke, people listened. I certainly did. And I learned a lot from him at a critical point in my career. Leslie was a man of impeccable manners, precise, respectful, and always patient. But what I most admired about Leslie and will always remember about him was his unfailing generosity. In that regard, he was the clone of his grandfather, Pappy Clark. Even now, as news of his passing spreads, Leslie's legendary generosity also moves through us like a blessing. I say without any fear of contradiction that none who sought Leslie's assistance was denied it. Incredibly, his hands were always open and somehow never empty, pouring kindness into the lives of countless beneficiaries. He gave as orchard trees give of their fruit, happily, without fanfare, and without expectation of reward. Leslie had many loves, including his family, sports, music, and culture, and his church. Except when overseas, he could be found at the St. Joseph the Worker Church in Grosley every Saturday night. Indeed, that was the scene of our last encounter just before Christmas. He was striding to his car as determinedly as his bandy legs would carry him. I was already in my car and waited for him to walk past before driving alongside him. Hey, Cletus, he beamed as he recognized me. Man, Leslie, I could recognize you anywhere just by your walk, I teased. He was as brief and as cheerful. It was as we had as brief and cheerful a chat as the impatient drivers behind me would allow, and I drove away. I have come to accept that in this unending, unrehearsed dance between death and life, there will be uncertain steps and turns and siren announcements at all times of the day or night, revealing who at the music's end had bowed and who had become its echo. Leslie's dance with life was brought to an abrupt end by the discordant sound of an errant vehicle, not too far away from the famed Palm Beach Club, once owned by his family, where he once danced the night away. Leslie, thanks for the warm memories and for your genuine friendship. I wish that your bandy legs will give you unending dances and that you will rest in phantasmal peace. And that piece written by Mr. Cletus Springer. And of course, I do hope that he doesn't mind that we share his very timely remembrance of certainly a very, very astounding gentleman, Mr. Leslie Clark. And of course, we want to extend to his family, to Jean, to Chayla and Derek and Jacques Claude, the entire Clark family, the condolences and the strength, of course, that they need at this time, at certainly a very much unexpected passing of an individual, no doubt, who loved them very, very, very much, and of course, whom they love and will continue to love indeed. So, of course, we want to also at this time note the real challenge of what we are dealing with in respect of our roads. We all have to use them at some point or another. We depend on our roads, whether we are pedestrians, whether we are motorists, whether we are driving a bicycle, riding a motorbike, whether we are driving a car or a truck, whatever the case may be. And we all have to share that common space. And once we're sharing a common space, it therefore means that there must be order, there must be rules, and individuals must therefore exercise a degree of discipline in respect of use of that common and shared space because it is for everyone to use. And so we all have to be thinking when we're getting on that road about not just ourselves, not just about the destination that we're trying to get to, not just about the fact that we might already be late or that we're going to be late. We've got to be thinking about the fact that we are going into that common space and we're sharing it. We have to be mindful of the other people who we are sharing it with. And of course, the duty of care that we have to exercise is even greater when it comes to if we are providing a service, especially for taxi drivers, especially for uh, public bus operators, minibus operators. They have an even greater duty of care to exercise that space with caution. And of course, driving a vehicle requires that you've got to be skilled and trained to be able to do so. And that is very important. And we've got to be ensuring as well that the vehicles that we are driving are motorable, right? And so are not going to endanger ourselves as well as other users within that space. So it is very, very, very important at this time when we, of course, are seeing lots more vehicles on the road, hundreds of vehicles coming on the island every single year. We've got the roads are not have not really gotten very much wider from the time, if you look back in time to the 60s and 70s, still pretty much the same roads, the same alignments in most instances. And so we have to be mindful of the physical limitations that exist in respect of our road network. It's not going to change overnight. And so the reality is we've got to conform. We've got to have the discipline to be able to conform with what we have. And so it is certainly very important that individuals, we all exercise consideration and discipline when we are utilizing our roads. We know it's a fast society. Everybody wants things to happen at lightning speed, at the speed of light, and we all want to be able to get from A to B as quickly as possible. But there are limits. There are, of course, limits, and we have limits, and we've got to be mindful of that within the context of our road use. We also know the risks and impediments that exist in that regard. One, driving under the influence, whether it may be the influence of an alcohol, whether it might be in terms of some other substance. Quite possibly, you should not be driving at all. There's so many of these illegal substances out there right now. Whether it might be marijuana, whether it might be some hallucinogen, whatever it may be. And of course, in some instances, medication that makes you drowsy, all of those things one has to guard against. Driving when you are tired, when you are fatigued, is also equally very, very risky. And that too is another major challenge. And it's difficult sometimes because we all are working very hard. We're sometimes you've got to be out, and then you're out very late or whatever the time may be, and you're trying to get back home, but you've had a long day, and it's a very major risk. Lots of people have certainly lost their lives as a result of that. And in the same way, in many places, if you're a pilot, you can only fly so many hours a day. If you're a coach driver, you can only drive so many hours a day. And pretty much the same exists as well with respect to persons who are getting behind the wheel of a vehicle. We all have our physical limits. And so it is important to be mindful of that reality of knowing your limit when you should not be getting behind the wheel, whether it's because you're tired or you're fatigued, whether it's because you've been consuming some substance or whatever the case may be. You need to know your limits. And sometimes, unfortunately, we have to be also our brother's keepers, because in many instances, especially when people end up engaging in drinking or what have you, it becomes they don't even know. They don't even have control over their senses, and so quite often, you may have to step in. You may have to step in for your friend or family member to ensure that they don't get behind that wheel. And it's very important as well that we are also keeping focused on the road. That's the other major challenge, keeping focused on the road. And there are lots of distractions now, right? It could be you on your mobile phone. It could be something else that's going on. Something like we want to be careful about signage, for example. You could be looking at a sign that's taking you away. You could. We see the effect every time we have an accident of how, of course, everybody wants to slow down because they want to be able to see all the details and look at what the scene is. All of those things have their own risks. And of course, it is an environment where you really have to be very, very, very focused in terms of what is going on there. We only have two eyes, and they're only in facing one direction. And so it's we don't have 360-degree vision. They are blind spots, even if you know how to use your mirrors very well. But it certainly is something where you require lots of focus. Music, very loud music, can also be distracting when you're actually driving. You may not be able to hear the siren of the vehicle, of the ambulance that's coming down towards you. You may not be able to focus on what's going on. And so you really it's an environment within which you've got to be pretty focused on the task at hand. And it's not always easy to do so, right? But it is certainly necessary. That discipline, when you get behind that wheel, that you've got to be focused on that task. And of course, in addition to that, we also have to be mindful of driving sensibly. And driving sensibly requires you to be able to understand your vehicle, understand the realities, the physics involved, right? There's a science involved in this machine moving, and understanding the implications of speed and the control of speed, and especially understanding when you're going around a bend. You've got to understand that there are forces at play, there's centrifugal forces at play, and you've got to be mindful that you've got to be able to control that machine. And so, unfortunately, we've got a lot of people out there who are not driving defensively. In fact, one could say they're driving offensively, and they are being very offensive to other individuals in the same common space. So we certainly have a task at hand in this country in terms of how we deal with discipline, not just from the perspective of driving, because we're seeing it right now, especially in that common space of the road. But we know that there are also the issues of discipline in many other places, at the workplace, at the schools, right? We're seeing the challenges that are abounding, that are around, and so we certainly have to continue to push for a more disciplined society, a society that is going to be responsible, a society that is going to be considerate of others. And that is really very, very critical. That culture that has to be developed is going to require certainly not just having rules and laws, but of course ensuring that the laws are followed, and that in instances where they are not followed, there are in fact penalties that are brought forward against persons who are not following the rules. And so we're hearing about it right now. And I know it's a difficult time in the world, because you're seeing lots of people out there in the geopolitical space really trying to tear apart this whole idea of a rules-based world, right? Not following the rules, doing whatever they want, whether, I'm big and bad, so I can do whatever I want. And that is very, very much a problem. So the glorification of those who are breaking the rules, that certainly is something we need to discourage, we need to stop. It cannot be that we are celebrating people who are deliberately breaking rules. And that requires a certain level of zero tolerance across the board. And we certainly have to be able to promote the idea that we should all be able to follow the law. We should all be able to follow the rules and be disciplined about it as well. It's not to say that we shouldn't, consider that there may be instances where you've got to use some level of discretion or whatnot, but it's certainly important that we all are reading from the same songbook or singing from the same hymn book when it comes to the matter of driving on our roads and how we interact with other citizens, interact with other human beings who we have to come into contact with. Now, that's our dish of the day. And we're going to take in our weather report at this time. When we come back, we'll also be opening up the phone lines.
This has been The Daily Dish. This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
So, of course, on the 1.1, it's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tell 'em Back. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east and east-northeast near 21 miles per hour or 33 kilometers per hour. The weather fair to partly cloudy and breezy with a chance of brief showers. And there is an advisory there which reads small craft operators and sea bathers advised to exercise caution due to brisk winds and locally rough seas. The forecast for the lesser entities, fair and breezy, becoming cloudy at times with a few showers. And the weather summary, the Atlantic high pressure system will maintain moderate to brisk easterly winds and locally rough seas across the region during the next few days. Patches of low-level clouds drifting along the wind flow will cause a few showers over the lesser Antilles during the forecast period. And this was your weather forecast as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tell 'em Back.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style. Yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island Style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style. We have times and insects, mixes and grow. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all at Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
Welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. Our number to call in to the program to tell us what is of interest to you. And of course, we do hope that you did have a very good weekend. over the weekend, there was also a bit of politics in the ruling St. Lucia Labour Party. They had their annual conference of delegates, and that occurred down in the community of Reunion, Choiseul. And that, of course, is expected of political parties, that they do have these events which are very important for the democracy of the institutions. And you want to know, for example, that if you've got a political party, that they in fact take democracy seriously. They actually have a process by which they actually go about electing their leaders. It should be fair, it should be impartial, it should be transparent. And I think it's really important for that. It should be really a measure as well, or a metric that one uses to look at political parties and how serious they are as institutions. We've heard in the past people coming and starting political parties out of the blue without any sort of sense that there was a process by way of having a democratic process of involvement. And that's important. It's not merely just about the outward manifestations of the arguments, but certainly the manifestation of democracy from within as well. The inward manifestations are very important as well. So, anyways, that happened down in Choiseul, and I think we're also going to be waiting to see what is going to happen with respect to the United Workers' Party. Of course, they have been a major party in St. Lucia since 1964. And so they are heading into this is 61 years. And we do know, of course, that there were certain statements made in terms of perhaps some changes that are going to be coming from that party, but we're going to have to wait to see what comes out of their own annual conference rather soon, hopefully. Let's take a call at this time. We're going to go to the 494523046. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hello, good afternoon. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, caller. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
French connection take over. So
sorry, what about the French connection?
Take over Radio Caribbean again.
Oh no. Are you on what frequency?
I get it and live stream it on my Google. I get it on the radio, but not if I have, because usually in the Google I rather listen.
Okay.
But when the French connection take over, I just have to go back to the radio.
The radio. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I need to mention. And some time ago, I think last week I told you that the road they had done a sidewalk.
Yes, you mentioned that.
But the thing is that I just understand that it was the St. Lucia Football Association.
They have an office nearby.
They have the office in Los Clary.
Yes.
So apparently they took up from, I think, by Ena to Tip, but they stopped right in front of the place.
Okay, well, they did their section. So
their section. So I thought I would get a privilege of getting through. But so I'm asking the Ministry of Infrastructure, since they have just stopped there, I thought they'll go higher up. Just continue. So, because, I mean, you're walking on something nice, then you have to, because Saturday, and they actually put some like a stone or something, because I think, I am certainly sure that's where they may be stopping, because they put in they were looking for themselves. So Ministry of Infrastructure, please try and continue from where they stopped off.
Mm-hmm.
It is needed, because there's a bakery there, they sell gas, everything, and then walking there, it's not easy. Walking there, especially during the night time, and you come because traffic is coming from south to go up north, traffic from north to go down south, and it's really hectic. And there's another road that takes you up to Chase Garden, so it's quite busy there. Quite busy, and sometimes the cars speed there. So I'm telling you, they speed some action, but they do something to complete the work that the Football Association has started.
Yes, certainly. I hope that that the Ministry of Infrastructure is listening to your plea, and I do hope that somehow it could get programmed within a lot of the projects that they are working on. I know, of course, they will quickly tell you that there's so many other areas and there's so many other places, but then,
Yeah, but it's so long.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
And
Of
a
course.
short thing before I go. This morning I happened to be listening to sports, and they were naming the squad for the World Cup, the 2020 World Cup starting next month, which is from the 7th to the 8th of March. Now I think Johnson Charles was the only Samuelson chosen on the squad. And I think there were 6 Guyanese, 1 Trinidadian, a couple of Bajans, and you should have heard Andrew Mason. It's like Andrew Mason came down so hard, on Johnson Charles on the thing, that as if Johnson Charles should not have been anywhere on the squad. He even went outside and put in Rodney Bay in it. What does Rodney Bay have to do Johnson Charles being on the squad? Come on.
Well, you may have to explain that one first because I don't even understand.
You'd have to listen to him. Yeah, it was so because he came out as if it's because I suppose what he must be saying is because Darren Summit is the coach. He maybe just fitting Johnson Charles there, and as if Johnson Charles should not be there. And he was very, very. Just listening to him, he sounded so angry, just the fact. And he had a lot to say, but I can't quote everything. But he made a part, even mentioning something about even if it's because of Rodney Bay or some kind of crap he said. And I find, come on, there are others on the squad. You don't even know. So what if, at the end of the World Cup, West Indies win?
Mm-hmm.
Will you go to eat humble pie? Because you have a problem if what's his name, Johnson Charles being there? So you mean to say he's the only one you have a problem with on the squad, and you have to come down so hard? Come on, I just don't understand this. But it's like to put down people, belittle people. Even the game has not even started yet, but yet you're already trying to come out hard on Johnson, and I would say Darren Sammy too. And that I don't know why I didn't hear what's his name. That is always calling you.
Mr. Pereira? Red
Yes.
Pereira? Yes.
Yeah, maybe you would be able to explain most of what Andrew Mason
I mean, I didn't hear what he's. Yeah, I didn't have the benefit of hearing what he said.
I listened to his whole comment.
Was it about performance? Did he speak maybe recent
problem with his performance, his this, his that, his all kinds of things. As if that was the only person. I suppose because maybe the Bajans he was expected to be on the team, they did not put them on the team. I think that's what I did. Okay.
Oh boy.
Mr. Pereira will give you
what's that?
Red will give you more information.
Well, hopefully he will. Hopefully he will give us a little bit more of that, of course.
Yes.
Yes, it did.
But I wasn't happy about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I understand why you, of course, want to certainly make that plea. I hope, of course, they have a good run. I hope they have a good shot at it, because of course it hasn't been easy over the past couple of years.
But you just never know. A game of cricket is on the day, as Darren was saying, is on the day. So.
Yes, but I think as well, but of course, it's on the day, and it's always the performance on the day, but then you've got to be prepared for that day, right? And I think that's really part of that challenge for the team, and very interesting time, of course, for West Indies cricket, even in terms of the leadership at the top. There were certain calls being made of late for the chair to step aside, given that he's now a minister of government. We're not sure how that's, of course, all going to pan out in terms of.
I just find some of those big boys in cricket that commentate and all that thing. They're just so quick to run their mouth and just belittle people. And come on, that's what I can't take on with them. Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's wish them the best. At this point in time, that's perhaps all we can do. Have a good one. And of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. We've been speaking about the issue of discipline on our roads and the challenges that we have in respect of the issue of of road accidents and the carnage that comes with that, the loss of life and limb that comes with these accidents. We certainly know that the people over at the OKU and the St. Jude Hospital, they feel it when they've got to be dealing with so many more of these health emergencies. That's one of the things that certainly adds to the accumulation of the challenges. So not only are you dealing with people who have natural health emergencies, maybe the heart attacks and the strokes and whatnot, you're also dealing with or somebody has fallen and and they've hurt themselves. You're now dealing, of course, with the road accidents, and you're dealing with the challenge of gun violence, and it can certainly be pretty overwhelming for the first responders, right? The men and women of the St. Lucia Fire Service who have to go out and deal with these situations and rescue individuals and try to bring them to into these medical facilities, and then of course the challenge on the medical facility side as well. So that has of course a psychological impact if they're facing all of these situations on a very regular basis. Let's take a call at this time. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom.
Good afternoon.
Hi, caller. How are you doing?
All right, I'm fine. Concerning the road accidents, we need to adopt a more data-driven approach to finding the root cause of those accidents. For example, we need to have information as to whether the drivers are on a particular age group, whether it's vehicles that are uninsured, whether the accidents are occurring at a particular time of day, whether they're more common on certain roadways, So when we have that data, then we can actually do a proper analysis,
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
A lot of that information, I believe, is held by the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. As to how specific they are in terms of the type of data that is collected, that certainly should be something to be looked at. But definitely, I agree with you that there has to be some data mining in looking at what the trends and what the patterns are, and how that can help. Also, even from a geographic perspective, in terms of identifying where the really dangerous accidents, locations where accidents are happening on a repeated basis, I mean, we can think of some very anecdotally, for example, on the junction with the Deglo Tuapito Road and the Castries V4 Highway has become somewhat notorious. Now, it might be because there's actually a business nearby that has a camera facing that junction, and we get to see quite often a lot of footage coming out of that junction. But it appears to be certainly a pretty dangerous junction, and you can understand why. That road is kind of meeting the main highway at an angle, and it's a long stretch, and so areas of line of sight. You're right. There are, of course, a lot of areas that we need to look at to see what then can be the approaches, whether it's soft approaches on the part of the police. Maybe they need to be a lot more present at particular areas, at particular stretches of road. And then, of course, in terms of the road managers, if you want to call them that, the road designers, the persons who have to make interventions at the level of the physical space, Ministry of Infrastructure, can there be potentially improvements, design improvements to sort of mitigate the efforts in certain areas?
Yeah, also in Australia and some other countries, they have put in place restrictions for young drivers in terms of what kind of vehicles they can drive, looking at the power to weight ratios of the vehicles, because now you have some small vehicles that have high performance engines and they can accelerate quickly. And in the hands of a young and experienced driver, that they are lethal weapons on the road. So those countries actually put in place restrictions. So they have special number plates assigned to young drivers, that actually restrict the kind of the power of the vehicle in terms of horsepower kilowatts that you can actually drive.
That's an interesting approach. But I would say though, I would hasten to say that the mindset of some people is that you know, they've got a vehicle. They might be driving a Suzuki Swift or Vitara, and they may think that this is some sort of McLaren or some sort of high-speed vehicle in their minds. That's what they're already thinking that, you know, wow, this is you know, I'm in a Fast and Furious scene, and they believe falsely that these vehicles are some, you know, that they can perform, you know, remarkable stunts with these vehicles. So that's equally dangerous. That's equally very dangerous if they don't appreciate that. Look, these vehicles are certainly not designed for these types of roads and expectations. So there's also, of course, a school of thought that we've got to find a means to challenge a lot of these interests as well. I mean, you do have motorsports is a big field. A lot of people are interested in it, and getting a safe environment, safe spaces for them for people to be able to actually enjoy that is something that I think as a country we have to look at from a recreation perspective.
And the issue with those aftermarket LED lamps blinding some people at night.
Yes.
I think what they found is that when you retrofit cars designed to use halogen lamps with LED lamps, then you have the problem. So it's something we need to put, you know, restrictions in, probably on the sale of those kind of retrofit, you know, LEDs, ensuring to that doing inspection that, you know, if you have a car that's designed for halogen, that you don't have, you know, LEDs light split on it and so on. You know, so,
very, very good point. I believe at the last police press briefing that was held, that matter was mentioned as to how the police have taken that on in terms of their policing work. It would be interesting to find out whether, in fact, whether they're planning on doing more nighttime checks, and whether as part of the checks they are also going to be looking at that issue with respect to the lights, because that certainly is you know, it can be very, very difficult and blinding, certainly for some of these users. And of course, again, but you have the issue of persons just not being courteous enough to dim their lights.
But I'm not sure that the aftermarket LED lights can be dimmed. That's another concern.
Oh, really? So okay. Well, I'm not sure.
If they are dim, they're probably still too bright.
Okay. Well, that I can understand. Yes. No, yes, of course, and of course, we've now moved in terms of LED lighting, street lighting as well. But that's another challenge, because you don't have as much spread in those lights as compared to the sodium lights that we had before. And invariably in a lot of places, especially on the long arterial roads, they would space these lights maybe every other pole. And so you actually have some of these dark spots, a lot more dark spots. So that's a major consideration that, again, I guess the Ministry of Infrastructure needs to be looking at, and to do some sort of a analysis of it in terms of the ease of driving or at nights. Because of course, if you do have a lot of these dark spots, then people will be more keen to keep their lights on bright.
Yes, exactly.
So that's where you kind of have to find a suitable approach to dealing with the street lighting.
On another matter, the previous caller mentioned about interference with RCI's broadcast in the north from Matic stations.
Yes,
it's quite severe in some areas, and I think it has to do with the fact that I think Matic they assign their frequencies based on some European frequency plan, which is because where we are in the Western Hemisphere, we use a North American plan. And so there's need for some sort of coordination between St. Lucia and Martinique, let's say at level of Excel and higher, to ensure that that we don't interfere with each other, in terms of the assignment of FM stations, So,
very, very important point. I completely agree with you. I don't know if there is in fact any cooperation, but you're right. There is. Okay, I'm not sure. I'm being told that there is some level of.
I'm not sure if there is, but it's something that that's probably taking up a level of Excel, and higher to ensure that, they don't have those issues. And interestingly, related to that interference thing, I remember still a few years ago, certain parts of Cape State, you couldn't get cell phone coverage on local networks.
Yeah,
So
you were roaming on Orange. Yeah.
You had to roam on a matic network.
Yeah, there's still definitely parts of Cap like that. The far end, Saline Point, and right up on the top, Mount Cap and those areas. Yeah. It's hard to deal with. I mean, some people will tell you that the north of Saint Lucia is very, very similar to the south of Martinique. And Saint Anne, and it was, in fact, might have even been a part of each other, they came around at the same time geologically and all of that. So there is, of course, an irony, I suppose, to it, in some regards. But yes, the challenges that we face in our topography, in our little island, indeed, very much so. Yes. Thanks very much for that, caller. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. And definitely the conversation regarding the matter of roads and road safety and our drivers. Yeah, we definitely need to take some responsibility to ensure that we are doing what we've got to do, right? I think it's these things need to be sort of wake-up calls first, but we need to be reminded about it. And I think definitely we've got some organizations that have been pushing for road safety over the years. I think is it Rotary? I think Rotary and also the Kiwanis. They've had projects to promote safe driving, and it's something that I think we all definitely do need to look at. Other agencies, even your National Council for Public Transportation. We don't have an AA, right? We don't have any automobile association of sorts here, but even maybe the motorsports people, I know they can certainly come on as well, and have a greater focus on road safety. It's something that we all, of course, have to take very seriously because we all want to get somewhere and we want to get there. We want to get there safely. So let's all play our part in that regard. Well, that's our program for today, and we do hope that you can join us again tomorrow, Thursday, for another program. Sorry, Wednesday for another program of the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.